If there is any character out there that you can absolutely not hate, it's gotta be Kirby. Kirby is without a doubt one of my favorite Nintendo franchises. From childhood to adulthood, I love this pink fluff ball. He has so many great games under his belt too. Superstar Ultra, Return to Dreamland, Air Ride, Planet Robobot, which is slept on. His games are so good. And of course, when you've got a huge game franchise, you've got a huge fan community, which leads to fan games. Kirby doesn't have the craziest amount of fan games out there, especially compared to the likes of Mario and Pokemon, but he's got a pretty good amount. There's ones like Dream Battle, which I loved, Dreamland Advance, Invaders of the Dark, Dreamland.exe, wait a second. Yep, despite the pure innocence that Kirby and his games represent, the Kirby fan community has still been able to put this hungry little guy into the realm of horror games. You want a real Kirby horror game? Try playing Triple Deluxe. Now, you might be thinking, wait, Kirby and horror don't mix at all, and you'd pretty much be right. It's true that Kirby does have some horror fan games out there. I mean, this video wouldn't exist if he didn't, but even with that, there is a very tiny amount. Despite this hurdle presented to me, god damn it, I want to talk about scary Kirby, so I went on a journey to find as many playable Kirby horror games as I could. Now granted, I only found like 5 in total, so today we'll be taking a look at 3 of them that I think can be properly talked about. And don't you worry, they all are indeed EXE games, and that's how you know we're in for a great time. I've said it before and I'll say it again, if you are a character that exists, you have an EXE game out there. I mean, goddamn Dig Dug has one at this point, but I mean, let's not rush to judgment here just because they're EXE games. For all I know, these could be the craziest horror experiences of my entire life. So without further ado, let's sink our teeth into some Kirby horror games. Before we start, quick reminder never to harass any of the creators of the games that I talk about. This is a video about Kirby horror games. It's not that serious and it never will be. With that out of the way, let's start off with a game that I actually knew about prior to starting work on this video, titled Dreamland.exe. Guess you could say it was a real nightmare in Dreamland. I worked on that joke for hours on end. Dreamland.exe is a fairly standard EXE game created by Randy Becker, who I've actually talked about on this channel before. He was responsible for the masterpiece that was Dr. Mario.exe. You're welcome for that, America. He's actually been a player in the creepypasta genre for quite a while, and one of his first ones was none other than Dreamland.exe. Did it age like a fine wine? Only one way to find out. Opening up the game and, oh, turns out that I actually installed Kirby Superstar by accident. I'm all for playing Peak though, so let's just jump right in. Right away, you're thrown into a level with some very questionable controls. A thing that I noticed immediately is that you can't infinitely fly with Kirby, and the inhale is really wonky. Sometimes it works fine, but I must be doing something wrong because it would just glitch out sometimes when I try to do some sucking. But I'll be fair, this is definitely not the worst controls I've played for an EXE game, so it gets like a C- for that alone. Also, a little scary red flash happens at the beginning. Gulp. Venturing onto the right, you finally find some enemies, but you can't even inhale them yet. Hell, you can't even die to them. That is, however, until you come across this lone Waddle Dee, which after eating him for doing absolutely nothing wrong, your screen cuts to black. It then fades into the poor guy falling through what I presume is Kirby's throat. Kirby must have had some nasty bacteria in there though, because his eyes immediately start to bleed and disappear. Wait a minute, I think I just realized something. This isn't Kirby Superstar at all, what the hell, man? After recovering from my immense betrayal, I carried on. Now the world appears to be dark and scary, but not to mention that Kirby's also been flipped backwards and turned evil. Brick will terrify the masses for generations to come. Just run around this new, more dreadful level and inhale all the Waddle Dees that you can. I mean, at least Kirby seems to be enjoying himself, good for him. After successfully eating all of the Waddle Dees, you can walk to the right and cut to black, but not before an evil Kirby lunges at you. Fun fact, this actually was not supposed to happen at all, and it turns out that the first time I played this game, I just broke it by accident. What's really supposed to happen is that after eating all the Waddle Dees, you turn all scary and toothy and eat none other than King DDD. Wow, Kirby must have wanted something super delicious and sweet. He should have used code TOADBUP for 10% off at GamerSup so he could have picked up some delicious energy drinks. And for a limited time only, Kirby could get free shipping when using my code on orders over $40. Basically, buy a tub, it's free shipping. Anyways, back to the video. We now cut to the king in the fleshy Kirby tunnels. I mean, serves him right for stealing some food that one time. Send this man to the Kirby digestion tract and have him dissolved. Walking to the right for a while, which you'll hear that phrase a lot when I talk about EXE games, you come across a bunch of bloody-eyed Scarfies. Once again, I think Kirby's got like a bacterial infection or something because this cannot be normal. King DDD proceeds to get his ass beat by the Scarfies and the game cuts to black once more. The last part of this game has you playing as Waddle Doo, collecting stars as the killer Kirby begins to hunt you down. I'm glad the game at least gives Waddle Doo a positive last memory before he gets put down. That's very sweet. Kirby stalks you for a while, it gets darker, you walk to the right, and you find Kirby just kinda chilling. You can stand by him all you want, but the second you try to walk away, you're hit with a classic jump scare. It cuts to black, something about devouring my soul, I don't really know. Hey, baby, that's all, folks. I mean, that was by no means the worst thing I've ever played, but at the end of the day, Dreamland.exe was just your run-of-the-mill EXE game. It's got your bloody-eyed version of a famous character, reversed music, walking simulator gameplay, and the tried-and-true jump scare. It is nice to get some Kirby representation in the horror genre, but I can't really beat around the bush here. Dreamland.exe is not good. Honestly, I don't even feel like the same person after playing that, but I don't think I've changed that much, right? Moving on.
What better to follow up a Kirby creepypasta game with than another Kirby creepypasta game? I don't think any one person was meant to play this many EXE games in a row. I am losing my sanity.
Next up is a game called KirbyHelpers.exe, created by Osama345. Apparently it's reincarnated too. I wonder what horrid deed you had to have done in your life to be reincarnated as an EXE game. Opening the game up and oh, I guess I really did download Superstar by accident this time. I know for a fact that this is the original game and not a fake out. God damn it, you can't keep doing this! In this game, you play as 3 of the Kirby enemies, Burning Leo, Sir Kibble, and Rocky. I don't know how I had to Google the easiest name out of those 3. Now, if you're even a tiny bit familiar with the EXE genre, you may recognize this character select screen, and even more notably, you'll probably recognize the laugh that plays after. That's right, this game is fundamentally just Sonic.exe. I'll never be able to escape the cerulean rat, now will I? Now, I will say that this game is actually better than the original Sonic EXE. Allow me to elaborate. You start off by playing as Burning Leo, and you actually have his abilities from the game. Making your way through this stage, you fall into a pit as a mysterious voice asks if you want to play a game. Come on, this is just Sonic EXE! Unlike Sonic.exe, however, you've actually got some gameplay you've got to make your way through with a time limit in the top left corner. It was nice to have a game like this actually include gameplay, but man, was it annoying. Still more gameplay than Sonic.exe though. The controls are so goofy and finicky, you press like one thing and you accidentally do something else. For example, 50% of the time I'd shoot fire, it would either shoot it behind me or I'd turn into a flaming ball that couldn't do anything for a few seconds. With these weird controls, it's a bit difficult at first to navigate through the platforming section, but I eventually was able to do it. It didn't really matter though, because I die anyways, awesome. Next up is Sir Kibble, and maybe now is a good time to bring up the art style. I mean, yeah, these are by no means stellar, but I will say this, these sprites have way more passion put into them than any of these other creepypasta games that just use shitty sprite edits that add red eyes and blood. Back to Sir Kibble, you engage in a little walking simulator, and then you're put into this level with this weird dirty bubble Kirby hybrid thing. Cut down some trees, run to the right as fast as you can, and get stabbed in the mouth by Kirby. I'm glad that Kirby is so against deforestation. I'm proud of that guy. Anyways, last up is the stone cold fiend himself, Rocky. Also, these portraits of the dead characters are just something else. This stage is nothing special. You run across this red brick area, flying meatballs begin launching at you from the sky, you get crushed, and that's the end of the most iconic trio to date. With all of these classic icons of gaming dead, your game turns to black, and you're hit with the classic "You're next." And then your computer blue screens. I was very close to being fooled by this treacherous deceit, but alas, they forgot one small detail. This blue screen is over a decade old at this point. Use the frowny face, you coward. Oh, but your demise is not over just yet, as these red eyes appear and start to talk about how hungry they are. So hungry, and yet you're the only food source, I guess. Before they eat a big old bowl of toadbup soup, they have one more game they want to play. This time you play as the Kirby character Magenta Square. I loved his role in Squeak Squad. Wander through this Kirby-infested wonderland, get eaten up by the giant dirty bubble in the sky, and the game's over. Like, it's over. See, it says so right there. KirbyHelpers.exe was, it was a game. Like I said, I actually find the MS Paint art style kind of charming. It's by no means scary at all, but I feel like this art style just gives off way more personality than a lot of the other EXE bloodfests out there. I also like the unique idea of playing as Kirby enemies, and I like that there's actually some gameplay outside of walking to the right, but that's really all I've got to say on positives. I mean, very obviously, this game just straight up steals the Sonic EXE formula, down to the dialogue used in some of the levels, even in the ending one. It's also got your normal EXE gripes like cheap jump scares and lots of blood and whatnot. I feel like a broken record talking about these. Crazy that an EXE game would be like an EXE game. You could have fooled me. On to the last game, and I'm actually pretty excited for this one. Why is that, you ask? Because they can no longer trick me into thinking it's Superstar. This is the Nintendo Entertainment System, you son of a bitch. You can't get me. Created by Polygonist Games, Kirby's Adventure.exe is an EXE game of Kirby's Adventure for the NES. I told you, the only Kirby horror games out there were EXE games. Someone needs to make a horror game where you're like trapped in a scary hospital, but you're Morpho Knight. Getting into the game, it's good old classic Kirby. I don't really recall the original game having keyboard controls in the sky though. That must have just slipped my mind while playing. I also noticed that every time Kirby jumps, he does a flip. I love that. Surprisingly, this game's actually got multiple platforming levels with various different bosses, as the game slowly devolves into this gut-wrenching horror. Oh wait, turns out I actually dreamt all of that because I fell asleep while walking to the right for hours on end. This is just another walking simulator. After walking to the right for long enough, the music cuts and you're met with a big puddle of blood. Kirby's not a big fan of it, and he also leaves little footprints behind. Anyways, frolic through the blood and the game cuts to black as somebody welcomes you to your dreamland. Okay, so let me get this straight. Someone's just trapped Kirby in this horrific nightmare world for fun? Put me in that game. I'll fuck this guy up beyond belief. Nobody messes with Kirby. Traveling through your average blood-stained, corpse-littered area, you get immediately speared in the head. Or I guess your chest, your body, I don't know, whatever Kirby is. Gray Kirby then comes out, makes some intense eye contact with the player, and the game cuts to black. Isn't this beautiful? I mean, I wouldn't put it in a museum personally, but art is subjective. Back to the game, poor Kirby is now crying as he walks through this red area. The red area is now gray. I feel so dumb writing this part of the script. Red turned to gray. I need to get a hobby. Anyways, you encounter my boy Wispy Woods, and Gray Kirby crushes you with a big ol' apple. After evil Kirby confesses his love for me, you're back to more scary red stage shenanigans. One dead DDD and Meta Knight passed later, and you're almost to the end of the stage. You eventually come across these messages that are on the wall, like one that says that it's time to die! And apparently the devs of Kirby play a part in this too, because the evil Kirby claims to have hacked into the system, and he lists off a bunch of developer names in a row. Imagine being Masahiro Sakurai and then coming into work one day only to see this shit on your computer. I think I'd just quit on the spot. More threats of death are given, but he appears to follow through on them pretty quick, as he then hits you with an insane seizure-inducing jump scare. This gray blob is all like, haha, you couldn't save him, and the game closes. You think it's over, but if you boot the game up again, evil Kirby's all like, wait, you want to play my game? Well, I guess. They want to show you something beautiful, and once again, I must take the definition of beauty into question here, because in what universe is this beautiful? Walk to the right in this loud-ass bright room of death, and the game ends with a jump scare. Or at least it would have been a jump scare if the Discord link that the game opens up still existed. Are you telling me that evil Kirby is lost media? Now, I did like this one better than the last two games, but that's like saying that I like having my foot sawed off instead of my arms. Once again, it falls into the generic EXE tropes of being a walking simulator, having lots of unnecessary blood, and a cheap and annoying jump scare. I liked the concerned Kirby sprite they showed for a bit, and I liked the invalid Discord link at the end, but man, I've got nothing to say at this point. Here's a funny video instead. We've hit the end of our horrific Kirby journey, and my main takeaway from this whole experience is that they need to put Morpho Knight in a horror game. Please, just put my man in FNAF or Silent Hill or Dig Dug, anything, I'm begging you. I feel like Kirby horror games are the perfect example of don't fix what ain't broke. This, of course, is referring to the idea that Kirby and horror should never mix. Don't change that, don't fix it. It's obvious that I'm a fan of EXE games, but playing 3 very generic ones in a row is enough to break anyone. I feel like sometimes I forget where the creepypasta genre is at sometimes, that a lot of these games are still stuck in that mid to late 2010s phase of being jump scare infested walking simulators. We've seen that EXE and creepypasta games could be a lot more than that, and it's just kinda sad to see that Kirby hasn't quite broken into that category just yet. Or maybe it's not sad. Once again, I personally don't think Kirby and horror mix well. But I mean, hey, if Sonic can wrangle up some good EXE games all these years later, then maybe Kirby can too. Someone out there, prove me wrong and make a good Kirby horror game. I feel like with enough talented passion, pretty much anything is possible. Except beating this dumb ice stage on time. It's impossible, I tell you. On second thought, I think I may have constructed the perfect Kirby horror game. May I present to you silly Kirby.exe. Take a look.